This is most unusual, Captain. Horanuchi tilted his head to the side, then took a few steps to his right. Ogawa followed, leaving Tanaka out of earshot. Speaking softly, Horanuchi continued. Ogawa, our surface fleet was annihilated at Leyte Gulf. We counted on a decisive battle to stop the Americans, but it was our own forces that were defeated instead. It is just a matter of time before all of our remaining resources will be assigned in defense of the homeland. We will make the Americans pay heavily in blood, Ogawa said harshly. True, but there is no question that they have the will to conquer, regardless of the losses. The slaughter of our own people will be appalling. Horanuchi contemplated the sacrifice of his own family and fell silent for a moment. The army has approached us for assistance in a valiant operation, he continued. Dr. Tanaka is affiliated with Unit 731. You will take him and his cargo across the Pacific and launch an attack on the American mainland. You are to avoid detection and protect your boat at all costs en route. Succeed, Ogawa, and the Americans will bow to a truce, and our homeland will be preserved. Ogawa was stunned by the words. His fellow submarine commanders were waging a mostly defensive battle to protect the remnants of the surface fleet, yet he was to cross the Pacific single-handedly and launch an attack that would end the war. He might have ridiculed the idea had it not been a fleet staff officer dictating the order to him out of desperation in the middle of the night. I am most honored by your confidence, Captain Horanuchi. Rest assured, my crew and officers will uphold the honor to the Emperor. If I may ask, sir, what exactly is Dr. Tanaka's cargo? Ogawa inquired. Horanuchi gazed forlornly across the bay for several seconds. Makaze, he finally muttered quietly. An evil wind. Under the watchful eye of Dr. Tanaka, a half-dozen oblong wooden crates were carefully loaded by the Kempai Tai guards into the forward torpedo room of the I-403 and tightly secured. Ogawa ordered the submarine's 4 diesel engines turned over and the deck lines released. At 2:30 in the morning, the iron sub nosed slowly into the inky harbor and inched its way past several other fleet I-boats docked in the yard. Ogawa noted with curiosity that Horanuchi sat silently in the darkened truck on the pier, refusing to leave until after the I-403 was well out of sight. Creeping past the docks and warehouses of the sprawling Navy Yard, the sub soon approached a massive shadow looming against the darkness ahead. Lying quietly in a repair dock, the massive battleship Yamato towered above the submarine like a behemoth. With its massive 18-inch guns and 16-inch thick armor plating, the Yamato was the most feared vessel afloat. Ogawa admired the lines and armament of the world's largest battleship as he sailed past, then felt a touch of pity towards her. Like her sister ship the Musashi, recently sunk in the Philippines, the Yamato, he feared, was destined to find her way to the bottom of the sea before the war was over. Gradually the lights of Kure fell away as the submarine snaked around several large islands, then entered the Seto Inland Sea. Ogawa ordered increased speed as the mountainous island croppings fell away and the first gray patches of pre-dawn light tinted the eastern sky. As he marked their route in the conning tower with the I-403's navigator, Ogawa was approached by the executive officer climbing up from below. Hot tea, sir, Lieutenant Yoshi Motoshita said, thrusting a small cup towards the commander. A thin man with a warm demeanor, Motoshita mustered a grin even at 5 in the morning. Yes, thanks, Ogawa replied crisply before gulping at the tea. The hot liquid was a welcome tonic against the chilled December air, and Ogawa quickly drained the cup. The sea is unusually calm this morning, Motoshita noted. Fine conditions for fishing, Ogawa said reflectively. The son of a fisherman, Ogawa had grown up in a small village on the southern island of Kyushu. Accustomed to a hard life on the water, Ogawa had overcome a modest background by passing the formidable entrance exams to Edojima, the Japanese Naval Academy. After gaining his commission, he was drawn to the growing pre-war submarine force and served on 2 boats before attaining command of the I-403 in late 1943. Under his leadership, the I-403 had sunk a half-dozen merchant ships, along with an Australian destroyer in the Philippines. Ogawa was considered one of the top submarine captains remaining in the rapidly shrinking underwater fleet. Yoshi, we'll initiate a zigzag running pattern when we reach the strait, then submerge before we leave the mainland. We can take no chances with enemy submarines patrolling off our coast. I will alert the crew, sir. And Dr. Tanaka, see that he is situated comfortably. I have offered him my cabin, Motoshita said with a pained look. Judging by the stack of books he brought with him, I think he will keep himself occupied and out of our way. Very well, Ogawa replied, wondering silently about his unwanted passenger. As a crimson sun crept up over the eastern horizon, the I-403 veered south from the inland sea into the Bungo Strait, a pathway above Japan's southern island of Kyushu that poured into the Pacific Ocean. A gray destroyer limped past the sub on its way back to port, listing heavily to one side and showing a rash of gaping holes in its bridge and decks, the result of a nasty encounter with a pair of U.S. Navy Hellcats. On the submarine, several petty officers crowded the conning tower to take a final glimpse of their green island nation, uncertain as all seamen departing for battle whether they would return home again. When the approach to the Pacific became visible to the lookout, Ogawa issued the command to dive. A loud bell clanged throughout the submarine, and sailors scurried to secure the deck and hatches. "Submerge to 15 meters," Ogawa ordered from the bridge. Large ballast tanks were flooded with seawater, and the diving planes tipped forward. With a rush of collapsing water, the I-403's nose dipped downward, and the entire submarine was quickly gobbled up by the murky green sea. In the Pacific waters off the Bungo Strait, aggressive American submarines lurked in the depths, hunting merchant supply ships or armed vessels en route from the Kure Navy base. Submarine against submarine attacks were not unheard of, and Ogawa was not about to make himself easy fodder. Entering the Pacific waters, he quickly aimed the I-403 northeast and away from the bulk of the wartime traffic traveling south towards the Philippines. As were most subs of its era, the I-403 was powered by diesel and electric motors. In daylight hours, the I-403 would operate submerged, powered by battery-operated electric motors that pushed the sub along at a sluggish 6 knots per hour. Under cover of darkness, the I-403 would surface and crank up the diesel engines, which propelled the boat to better than 18 knots, while recharging the batteries. But the I-403 was no ordinary submarine. Stretching over 390 feet long, the I-403 was one of a handful of Sentoku-class submarines, which were the largest built in their day. The massive iron vessel displaced over 5,200 tons and was pushed through the water by 4 7,700-horsepower diesel engines. The I-403's truly unique feature, however, was the vessel's armament of aircraft. The I-403 could carry 3 Saran floatplanes, which were small converted dive bombers that could be launched from a catapult on the center bow. While traveling at sea, the planes were disassembled and stored in a 110-foot-long watertight hangar that stretched along the sub's deck. A shortage of aircraft had forced Ogawa to give up one of his seaplanes for coastal reconnaissance, however, and his vessel now carried just 2 of the Saran aircraft. Once the I-403 had safely entered the Pacific, Ogawa retired to his cabin and reread the brief mission orders Horinouchi had given him. The succinct commands called for him to sail a northerly route across the Pacific, with the refueling stop in the Aleutians. He was to proceed to the northwest coast of the United States, where his 2 aircraft were to launch air attacks on the cities of Tacoma, Seattle, Victoria, and Vancouver. On the face of it, it appeared a futile gesture, thought Ogawa. Japan needed her submarines for homeland waters defense, rather than instigating minuscule attacks with a pair of small aircraft. But there was the question of Dr. Tanaka and his unidentified cargo. Summoned to Ogawa's cabin, Tanaka bowed gracefully before entering the cramped quarters and seating himself at a small wooden table. The slightly built scientist bore a shrewish and unsmiling face. A pair of vacant black eyes that were magnified by thick glasses augmented his sinister appearance. Dispensing with formalities, Ogawa pressed immediately for the nature of the doctor's presence. Dr. Tanaka,